Hi everyone, so today you are going to do a watercolor pencil painting. And so I'm just going to show you some of the cool techniques you can use to help you have a successful painting. So the first thing you're going to do is get one of these little strips of watercolor paper and you're going to practice. So the cool thing about watercolor pencils is that they literally are just like regular pencils, except when you add water to it, they become watercolor paint. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab one, and you guys will do the same thing in a minute, and I'm going to make a little bit of a value scale. So I'm pressing really dark here, and then I'm pressing a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, until eventually I'm going to run out and be really light until there's nothing there, okay? So you guys are going to practice making a quick little value scale, and you can add other colors. The cool thing about any kind of painting or anything done with color is that you should always try to get more than one. So one type. So if you like blue, go get all the blues, right? So maybe and these are a little bit green actually, which is great. So I'm going to experiment going on top with a little bit of green, aqua, getting lighter, just to spice it up a little bit so it's not so boring. Then I'm going to go and I'm just going to use my little paintbrush. I'm going to add some water to it. Now the rule is always start with the white, because if you get rid of the white, you can't get it back, right? So you get the white wet first, what you want to stay forever white, then you start to work your way in. Okay, now I clean off my brush often, come back, move my way this way. Never start with the dark and move this way, because all of this dark will bleed into the water and it will ruin it. So start from the light side, move your way to the dark side. And it literally is as simple as that. I can come and spread everything out a little bit more. The cool thing about watercolor is that you're supposed to let the water take control, right? And let the water spread and move where it wants to spread and move. So then you can keep playing around. Maybe I'm going to put some over here, come down here, come up here. Now I'm just going to have fun with it since I did my value scale, and I'm just going to play around for a minute and let's see what the water wants to do. Maybe I'll go crazy here and add a little red. Now, if you're going to practice like this, I want you to make sure you're leaving some areas nice and white. All right, so now I'm just going to go in and practice. So the first thing I do is I find my white area, get my white area nice and wet, and then work my way up. Now if I take this, because it just got my paintbrush full of that color, if I take that and I move it over, everything's going to turn into that color, which is really kind of cool. You add more water and it spreads. It's like crystals. It spreads, and so you kind of sometimes want to do that, right? But every time I don't want that color to spread somewhere else, I make sure to get my brush clean. So this was a different color than this one, so I cleaned my brush, but it did blend into each other, which is beautiful, right? Clean my brush. This is a lighter purple, so I'm going to do my lighter purple differently. Clean my brush. Red. Now I like it when the two blend together right next to each other, so I'm not going to clean my brush right there. If I wanted this edge to stay white or lighter, I cleaned it off and just come over to the edge. Right? So you're kind of getting the picture now of how this works. I always start with the light, go over to the darker. Decide what you want to crystallize and blend and what you want to stay separate. You could go crazy and just, it's up to you, right? So after you practice with that, you're going to get your real one. So let's say this is the one that you chose. You're going to get a piece of watercolor paper that already has the image traced on here for you. All right, so if we're going to do this tulip here, I see reds here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go get all the reds and pinks and maybe a little bit of purple that I can get my hands on, right? And then I'm going to kind of just go for it. So I'm going to start with this one right here. I'm going to find my dark areas and I'm going to just color them in. Remembering all of this is really going to blend and smear together, so it doesn't have to be, my coloring doesn't have to be perfect. Although what you do want to avoid is if you color like this, that's not going to be enough for the water to do anything with. So you really have to fill it in so it has enough for the water to activate. So I'm going to just kind of move in the directions that I see on my example. Try to stay in the lines, all right? And I'm just going to find different areas, and then I'm gonna often go and switch. So now I'm gonna move to this one, right? So maybe this is going to be a little bit darker, right on the edge. Maybe I'm gonna fill this in a little bit like this, really nice and light. Maybe this one's gonna come up here. So basically, you're just getting close to the example, using as many different variations of your color choice as you want, trying to move with the movement of the flower. So now I'm gonna go in there with a little bit of blue. So again, I'm not too concerned about getting my coloring perfect because I know I'm gonna add water to it. And that is pretty much all gonna blend together anyways. So I'm coming in with the pink, which is different than these colors. Getting really, really, really light in some areas. Some areas I'm keeping white. Like right here, I'll keep white. I won't even touch. I love to overlap some colors. Overlapping colors is just like mixing some colors on a palette. And then when you're ready, you're just gonna go in there and start to fill it in. So if I want this to be white or light, I'm going to get that all wet first. Now when that's wet, I'm gonna come down to my next part. I'm gonna let that bleed together a little bit in there. So this is already wet. I'm gonna come in here and let that bleed with the wet that's right next to it. And I'm not gonna try to take too much control over it. I'm kinda gonna let the water do what it wants to do. Okay, so you're gonna practice this as well. Again, let the water bleed into the parts that you want to stay white, because nothing's going to be pure white on this. But you see how I'm letting that bleed? I'm letting it bleed over, and when it dries, it will be lighter. So this is supposed to stay lighter, so I'm going to try to put that in there. Get my paintbrush clean. Now I'm going to go to the side where it's darker. Let it bleed a little bit. Keep that white or light. And then just let the water do what it wants to do. Let the water move wherever it wants to move. All right, so you should not add water to your drawing until the whole thing is colored in. Because right now it's gonna be really hard if I want to go in there and color with this wet right next to it. So just pay attention to that. Also, we don't want to paint the entire background because the paper is going to start to get all wrinkly on us. So we're really just focusing on the flowers, but really pay attention. See all the different types of blues and purples and pinks and reds that are used. I did not just go and grab orange and color the whole thing in. I'm really trying to be smart about where my darks are, where my lights are, never just pure yellow, right? Try to add other colors in there and overlap, and then go on with the water. Good luck.